That is my bedroom, and that man was still my husband. Emily Carter typed 11 words under a stranger's photograph at 10:04 on a Thursday night, and the photograph was of her own bed, her own sheets, her own wedding picture on the shelf behind a 26-year-old influencer's bare shoulder. Olivia Reed had posted it that Sunday morning, while Emily was 3 miles away buying her husband's favorite coffee. She'd tagged the location as home. 11,000 people liked it before Emily said a single word. She didn't scream. She didn't call anyone. She opened a laptop, and for 11 days, she smiled at him across the dinner table while she built 400 pages. Before we go any further, please subscribe to the channel and stay with this story all the way to the end, because what Emily wrote under that post changed everything. And leave a comment telling me what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story has traveled. Emily Carter did not drop the bag. That was the first strange thing, and later she would think about it for a long time the way a person thinks about a moment that split their life into a before and an after. She did not drop the bag. She set it down on the counter carefully, the way she had set down 1,000 bags on 1,000 mornings, and she straightened the paper so it wouldn't fall over, and she folded the top of it down twice because Daniel hated when the pastries went stale. Daniel, who was supposed to be in Milwaukee. She looked at the photo again. There was a woman in her bed. Not a bed, her bed. Emily knew the sheets because she had bought them 11 years ago at a store on Michigan Avenue that didn't exist anymore, white cotton with a faint stitched border, and Daniel had complained about the price for a month and then slept on them every night of his life since. She knew the headboard. She knew the light coming through the left window at that hour, thin and gray, because she had woken up under it 4,000 times. And on the nightstand, half out of frame, sat a watch, steel, blue face. The one she had given him for their 10th anniversary, the one he'd said was too much, the one he'd worn every single day since. Emily's hands were steady. That was the second strange thing. She read the caption again. The man who was always meant to be yours. 3,000 people had liked it. She scrolled and the comments came up like water rising in a basement. You two are goals. So happy for you, girl. Finally, you deserve this. Whoever she is, she should have held on tighter. Emily read that last one 4 times. She put the phone face down on the counter. She took the pastries out of the bag and put them on a plate, because that's what she did on Sundays, and she put the plate on the table, and she sat down in the chair she always sat in, and she folded her hands and she looked at the wall for a while. Then she picked the phone back up and started taking screenshots. Photo, caption, timestamp, comments. The location tag, the little gray line that said 3,412 likes. She screenshotted the profile. She screenshotted the followers count. She screenshotted the 3 posts before it and the 2 after. She did it methodically, the way she had once organized 12 years of tax documents in a single weekend while Daniel watched a football game. 12 years of marriage had taught Emily Carter one thing above everything else, and it was this: emotions evaporate. Evidence stays. Her daughter Lily came down the stairs at 9:15 in a hoodie 2 sizes too big, hair everywhere, phone in one hand, the way 15-year-olds hold phones like a limb. Is there the cinnamon one? There's the cinnamon one. Lily took it, took a bite and said with her mouth full, "Where's Dad?" Emily didn't blink. "Milwaukee." "Right." Lily nodded, chewing. "He texted me last night, said the hotel had a weird smell." Emily's hands went cold. Not shaking. Cold. "Did he?" she said. "Yeah, he sent like a whole paragraph about it. It was actually funny." Lily looked up. "Mom, are you okay? You look weird." "I didn't sleep well." "You never sleep well." "That's true," Emily said, and she smiled, and it cost her more than anything she'd ever paid for. "Go finish your homework. It's Sunday. Go finish your homework anyway." Lily rolled her eyes and went, and the moment her feet hit the top step, Emily walked upstairs to her own bedroom and stood in the doorway. The bed was made. That was what got her. Not the mess, not the evidence. He had made the bed. Daniel Carter, who had not made a bed in 12 years, who left his socks on the floor like breadcrumbs, had smoothed the sheets and squared the pillows and pulled the corner tight the way she did, because he had watched her do it for over a decade, and he knew exactly what it was supposed to look like when she came home. He had been careful. He had been so careful. And a girl with a phone had undone all of it in 9 seconds because she wanted strangers to tell her she was pretty. Emily walked to the nightstand, opened the drawer. Nothing, closed it, went into the bathroom. The towel on the left rack was damp. 2 towels were damp. She stood there with her hand on the cold tile and did not cry, and later she would tell people that the not crying was the strangest part, that grief hadn't come at all that morning, that what came instead was something colder and clearer, like a window being wiped. Her phone buzzed. Daniel, landing at 6. Long day. Miss you. Emily looked at the text for a long moment. Then she typed, "Miss you too. Drive safe." She sent it. And she stood in her bathroom holding a phone, having just lied to her husband for the first time in 12 years, and she understood in that instant that she had become someone else. She went back downstairs. She opened the laptop. She started with the credit card. Emily had done the family finances since the 2nd year of their marriage because Daniel was terrible at it, and because she was good at it, and because it seemed practical at the time, and because nobody ever thinks about who holds the ledger until the day it matters. She knew every login. She knew every account. Daniel had never changed a single password because Daniel had never once imagined a world in which Emily would look. The first thing she found was a charge from the peninsula. 2 nights. April. He had told her April was Cleveland. The second thing she found was a charge for $1,100 at a boutique on Oak Street. May 14th. Emily's birthday was May 16th, and he had given her a scarf. The third thing she found was a recurring payment, $2,200 a month, same date every month. 18 months. She sat back in the chair. 18 months. Lily's voice floated down the stairs. "Mom, can Sophie come over?" "Not today, sweetheart." "Why?" "Because I said not today." A pause. Then sulking. "Fine." Emily looked at the screen. $2,200 a month, 18 months. She did the math in her head because she always did the math in her head, and the number came out to $39,600. In March, Daniel had sat at that exact table and told her they needed to pull Toby out of hockey. Toby was 9. He had cried in the car and then pretended he hadn't. And Emily had said, okay. Emily had said, we'll figure it out. Emily had cut the grocery budget and canceled the cleaning service and stopped getting her hair done and taken a spreadsheet to her own life like a surgeon because her husband said money was tight, and Emily Carter believed her husband. $39,600. She stood up so fast the chair scraped. She walked to the sink. She turned on the water. She put her hands under it and watched them, and they were still steady, and she thought, what is wrong with me? And then she thought, nothing is wrong with me. This is what it feels like when something finally makes sense, because it did make sense. That was the horror of it. 18 months of small, strange things suddenly clicked into a shape. The phone that lived face down. The gym membership he never used but paid for. The way he'd started saying babe again after years of not saying it, which she had taken as romance and now understood as guilt, wearing a costume. The Tuesday in November, he'd come home and hugged her too long, and she'd thought, he's so tired, and he'd said, you're a good person, Em. And she'd laughed and said, you're being weird, and he'd said, no, I mean it, you're a good person, and she had gone to bed happy. He hadn't been complimenting her. He had been apologizing to her without paying the price of an apology. Emily turned off the water. She dried her hands. And then she went back to the laptop, and she worked for 6 straight hours. She didn't eat. She made Lily a sandwich at 1 and made Toby a sandwich at 2 and sat back down. She built a folder. She built subfolders. She named them with dates. She pulled bank statements going back 3 years and highlighted every charge that didn't belong to their life. And by 4 o'clock, she had a spreadsheet with 140 rows, and by 5 o'clock, she had found the thing that changed everything. It wasn't in the personal account. It was in the business. Daniel Carter was an executive at Harrington Realty Group, and Emily had helped him build that career from the ground up back when he was 28 and terrified and doing cold calls out of a car with a broken heater. She had typed his listings. She had proofread his contracts. She had done his expense reports for 4 years because he couldn't be trusted with a receipt, and she had never lost the login. She stared at the screen for a long time before she clicked. Then she clicked. Consulting Market Research. O. Reed Media. $4,500. Consulting brand strategy, O. Reed Media, $4,500. Consulting market research, O. Reed Media, $6,000. Emily counted 11 of them. She sat very still. O. Reed Media was not a company. Emily searched it. There was no website, no filing, no address, nothing but a name attached to a bank account. And Daniel Carter had been paying it out of the firm's money for a year and a half while telling his wife to clip coupons. That was not an affair. That was a felony. Emily closed the laptop. She went and stood in the living room for a while, and she looked at the wedding photo on the shelf, the one that was visible in the background of Olivia Reed's post, and she felt the first hot thing she had felt all day rise up in her throat. That girl had photographed her wedding picture, deliberately, framed it, put it in the shot. Emily picked up the frame and looked at herself, 26 years old, laughing at something Daniel had said, and she thought, "You have no idea what's coming, sweetheart." She wasn't sure which one of them she was talking to. Daniel got home at 6:40. She heard the garage, she heard the door, she heard the keys in the bowl and the sigh he did the big theatrical one, the one that meant "notice how hard I work." In here. He came into the kitchen with his bag still over his shoulder and his tie loose, and he looked exactly like a man who had just spent 2 days in Milwaukee. That was the thing Emily would never get over. He looked tired. He had built the tiredness. He had put it on like a coat. "God, what a weekend," he said, dropping the bag. Traffic on 94 was a nightmare. Was it? 40 minutes just past Kenosha. He opened the fridge. Did the kids eat? They ate. There's no beer. There isn't. He turned around and looked at her, and for the first time, something flickered across his face. Some small animal instinct that noticed the room was too quiet. "You okay?" "I'm fine." "You sure you've got a—" He gestured at his own face. "A look." Emily said, "How was the hotel?" "Fine. Standard. Smelled weird." Lily said, "Yeah, I told her." He laughed. "Smelled like a swimming pool and a hospital had a baby." Which hotel was it? A pause. Half a second. Less. But Emily had lived with this man for 12 years, and she caught it the way you catch a dropped glass. "The Hyatt," he said. "The one by the water." "Yeah." "Huh," Emily said. He was already turning back to the fridge. "Why?" "No reason." And Emily Carter felt something in her chest go very quiet and very final, because she had just watched her husband lie to her face with total ease, smoothly, without a tremor, the way a person does something they've done 100 times, and she understood that she had never once in 12 years actually caught him. Not because he was careful, because she had never looked. He went upstairs to shower. Emily sat at the table. When he came back down in sweatpants, hair wet, he stopped in the doorway and said, "Okay, seriously, what's wrong?" Emily said, "Sit down." Sit down, Daniel." And here is the thing about Daniel Carter that Emily had never fully understood until that moment he sat. He always sat. He was a man who had been managed by women his entire life by his mother, and then by Emily, and some deep part of him still obeyed the tone. He sat. Emily slid her phone across the table. The photo was on the screen. She watched his face. She watched every muscle of it. She had loved that face. She had memorized it. And what she saw happen on it in the next 4 seconds was the single most educational experience of her adult life. He didn't look guilty. He looked annoyed. That was the first expression. Before shock, before fear, before shame, annoyance. The face of a man whose plan had a bug in it. And then half a beat later he arranged himself. She actually watched him do it. She watched him choose an expression the way a man chooses a tie. "Emily," he said gently. Okay, I need you to breathe." "I'm breathing. This is not what it looks like." "Daniel, I'm serious. This girl is—" He pushed his hands through his wet hair. "She is unwell. She's obsessed. She's been—" "That's our bedroom. I know how it looks." "That's my bed, Daniel. Those are the sheets from Bellamy's. That's your watch." He stopped, restarted. "She has been following me for months. She got into the house. I don't know how. I think she took a key from my—" Emily laughed. It came out of her before she could stop it. One sharp bark of a laugh, and Daniel actually flinched. "What?" he said. "You made the bed." He stared at her. "You made the bed, Daniel." Emily's voice didn't rise. That was what frightened him. She could see it. A crazy stalker broke into our house, and then you came home from Milwaukee and made the bed. You've never made a bed in your life, in 12 years, not once, not when I had pneumonia, not when I was in the hospital with Toby. She tilted her head. But you made it today. Daniel's mouth opened. Nothing came out. And Emily saw the exact second he abandoned the first lie and reached for the second one, and it was like watching a man in a burning house run to a different room. "Okay," he said. "Okay, you're right, and I'm God. I'm so tired of lying." "Are you?" "It happened. It happened once, twice. It was a mistake, and I have been sick about it. I have been sick." 18 months. He stopped. The kitchen clock ticked. Emily had never noticed that the kitchen clock ticked. "What?" he said. $2,200 a month for 18 months. Emily's voice was so calm it barely existed. "Her rent, I assume, or is that the car?" Daniel's face had gone the color of the countertop. "Emily, you told me we couldn't afford hockey." "Emily, listen to me." He cried, "Daniel!" And there it was. There was the crack in her voice, the first one, and Emily hated it and let it happen anyway. "He cried in the car and he wiped his face before we got in the house because he didn't want you to see. He was 9. He was protecting you." Daniel put his head in his hands. "How long have you known?" he said into his palms. "Since 11 o'clock this morning." His head came up. Today. You." He looked at her, and for the first time there was real fear in it. "You found all that today?" Emily said nothing. And Daniel Carter, sitting in his own kitchen in his sweatpants, looked at his wife of 12 years like he had never seen her before in his life, which of course he hadn't. He said, and his voice had changed, and it was softer now, and she recognized the softness because it was the same softness he used on clients. "Baby, listen to me. We can fix this." "Fix it. Yes, because look, it's not the marriage hasn't been right, has it? For a while now, you know that. You felt it too." We stopped talking, We stopped. "Don't you dare," Emily said, and something in her tone made him stop cold. "Don't you dare stand in the wreck you made and tell me I helped build it. That's not what 12 years. She was still calm. That was the thing. "I did your expense reports. I proofread your contracts. I stayed up until 2 in the morning the night before the Fairview pitch making flashcards for you like you were in the 8th grade. Do you remember that? Do you remember what you said to me?" He didn't answer. "You said, I couldn't do any of this without you." Emily nodded slowly. "And I believed you. That's my fault. I'll own that. I believed you." "Emily, where is she living?" He blinked. "What?" "Olivia. Where does she live? Because I'd like to know what $2,200 a month buys in this city since I've been shopping the sale rack at Kohl's." "Emily, stop." "Actually, no." Emily leaned forward. "Here's the better question. And I want you to think very carefully, Daniel, because I already know the answer, and I'm asking to see what you'll do." He went very still. "O-Read Media," Emily said. "What is that?" The silence went on so long the refrigerator clicked on. Daniel's face did something Emily had never seen it do. It emptied. Every performance drained out of it at once, every expression, every arranged thing, and underneath there was nothing but a scared 42-year-old man. "You went into the company account," he whispered. "I built that expense system," Emily said, "in 2014, on a laptop with a broken hinge while pregnant." "Emily." He reached across the table. She moved her hands. "Emily, listen to me. Listen. That is, you cannot do you understand what that is? Do you understand what happens if that gets out?" "I understand exactly what happens." "No, you don't, because it's not just me." He was talking fast now. "It's the firm. It's Harrington. It's M. It's your life, too. It's this house. It's the kids' school. If I go down, we all go down. You get that right. You get that." And Emily Carter looked across the table at her husband and realized he was not apologizing. He was negotiating. Something in her went perfectly, beautifully cold. "Say the rest," she said. "What? You've got more. Say it." He wiped his mouth. He looked away. And then he said it, and Emily would remember the words until the day she died. You're not exactly in a strong position here either, Em. She waited. You haven't worked in 12 years. He said it apologetically, which made it worse. You've got no income, no credit in your own name. If this becomes a thing, if lawyers get involved, if it gets ugly. He shrugged helplessly, like the world was doing this and not him. A judge looks at that. That's all I'm saying. A judge looks at who can provide. The kitchen clock ticked. You're threatening me with my children, Emily said. I'm not threatening you. I'm telling you the reality. You're sitting in a house I ran that you paid for with money you stole, and you're threatening me with my children. Emily. Say it clearly. Her voice was almost kind. I want to hear you say it clearly. If I don't stay quiet, you'll take my kids. Daniel Carter looked at his wife, and then he said, I'm just saying we should both be careful. Emily nodded slowly. Okay, she said. He blinked. Okay. Okay. She stood up. She picked up her phone. She put it in her pocket. I'm going to bed. That's M. He stood too thrown completely. That's it. What did you expect? I thought you'd scream, Emily said. Throw something. Cry. She looked at him with an expression he could not read at all, and it terrified him more than any scream would have. You've been married to me for 12 years, Daniel, and you still think that's who I am. She walked out. She slept in the guest room. She did not sleep. At 2:40 in the morning, she got up, went down to the kitchen, opened the laptop, and moved every file she had built that day into a cloud account, in her own name, then onto a physical drive, then emailed a copy to an address she hadn't used since 2011. At 3:15, she made a list of names. At 3:50, she found the phone number of a divorce attorney named Ruth Behar, who had once sat next to her at a school fundraiser and said over bad chicken, honey, you know where every dollar in that man's life is, don't you? Emily had laughed. Ruth hadn't. At 4:20, she wrote an email and did not send it. At 5:05, the sky started going gray, and Emily Carter sat alone in her kitchen and finally cried for exactly 6 minutes hard, with her hand over her mouth so the kids wouldn't hear. Then she washed her face and started the coffee, because Lily had school, because Toby had a dentist appointment, because the world does not stop for a woman's heart, and Emily had known that since she was a girl, and she had never once expected it to. Daniel came down at 7, showered, shaved, tie, perfect. Morning, he said carefully. Morning. I'm about last night. The kids are up. He stopped. He looked at her, and she watched relief flood his entire body, watched him decide that the storm had passed, that Emily had done what Emily always did, that she had absorbed it, that she had managed it. Okay, he said softly. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. He kissed the top of her head on his way out. Emily stood at the counter and did not move for a full minute after the garage door closed. Then she picked up her phone. Olivia Reed had posted again. A photo of a coffee cup, a window, a caption that read, "When you stop apologizing for wanting the life you deserve." 800 likes and climbing. And in the comments someone had asked, "Isn't he married though?" And Olivia had replied with a laughing emoji and one line, "Some women just refuse to accept when a man has moved on. Not my job to babysit her feelings." Emily read it 3 times. She set the phone down. She braced both hands on the counter. And then Emily Carter did something she had not done in 12 years. She got angry, not loud, not hot. It rose in her slow and level like water filling a room, and when it reached the top, she found that she could still think perfectly clearly, and that was the moment she understood something about herself that would change the next year of her life. She was not a woman who broke. She was a woman who filed. She picked the phone back up. She opened Ruth Behar's email. She read it once more, and she added one line at the bottom before she hit send. I have documentation, all of it. Please call me today. Then she went to the comment box under Olivia Reed's post, and her thumb hovered there for a long moment, and the cursor blinked, and 800 strangers waited. Emily typed nothing, not yet. She closed the app, put the phone in her pocket, and went upstairs to wake her son for school, because the truth was going to keep, and Emily Carter had waited 12 years already. She could wait 3 more days. Ruth Behar called back at 9:12 that Monday morning, and the first thing she said was not hello. "How much of it do you actually have?" Emily was standing in the laundry room with the door closed because it was the only room in the house where she could hear herself think. 38 months of personal accounts, 3 years of the business card, 11 consulting invoices to a company that doesn't exist. There was a silence on the line, long enough that Emily thought the call had dropped. "Say that last part again," Ruth said. "Oh, Reed Media. $4,500, $4,500, $6,000, and so on. 11 of them, coded as market research. And you can prove the vendor isn't real. There's no filing with the state, no EIN on the invoices, no website. The invoices were generated in a template you can download for free. The font's wrong on 2 of them." Ruth Behar laughed. It was not a warm laugh. It was the laugh of a woman who had just been handed something she had been waiting her whole career for. "Emily," she said, "I want you to listen to me very carefully, and I want you to not argue with me for the next 60 seconds. Can you do that? Yes. Do not confront him again. Do not accuse him. Do not send that girl a single word, not one, not a period. And do not under any circumstance move money out of any joint account." I wasn't going to. Everybody says that. Then they wire $11,000 to their sister and hand the other side their entire case. A pause. "Did you already say something to him?" "Last night." "How much?" "All of it." Ruth exhaled. Okay. What did he do?" Emily looked at the wall. "He told me a judge would look at the fact that I haven't worked in 12 years. The line went so quiet, Emily could hear the woman breathing. "He said that out loud," Ruth said. "In our kitchen. To your face." "Yes." "Emily," Ruth said, and her voice had gone flat and hard as a table. "Get in your car, right now. Not this afternoon, now." Emily was in Ruth Behar's office by 10:40, with a folder in her lap and her hands folded on top of it like a woman at church. Ruth was 61, gray-haired, built like a fire hydrant, and she read for 22 minutes without saying a single word. Emily watched her turn pages, watched her stop, watched her go back 2 pages, then forward again, then stop a second time, and put her finger on a line. "This one," Ruth said. "March 11th, $6,000. "What about it? What was Daniel doing on March 11th? Emily's mouth went dry. "He was in Phoenix. The Vandermeer closing." "Was he?" "That's what he said." Ruth turned the folder around and slid it across the desk. "Look at the personal card. Same day." Emily looked. A restaurant in Chicago, 9:45 at night, $211. "He wasn't in Phoenix," Emily said. "He wasn't in Phoenix," Ruth agreed. "He billed the firm $6,000 for market research on a day he told his wife he was in Arizona and told his employer he was closing a deal, and he was actually 11 minutes from your house eating a steak." She took her glasses off. "Emily, this isn't a divorce. This is a divorce sitting on top of a fraud case, and the fraud case is bigger. I don't want to destroy him." "I don't care what you want yet," Ruth said. "Right now I want you to understand what you're holding because you are about to make decisions and you don't get to unmake them." She leaned forward. "That man threatened you with your children while sitting on stolen money. You understand that's not a fight, right? That's a bluff. And it's the stupidest bluff I've seen in 30 years. Emily said, "He's their father." "He is. They love him. They do. Toby is 9. Ruth's face changed then just slightly. "Yeah," she said. "That's the part that never gets easier. But Emily, listen to me. You did not do this. Not 1 inch of it. And if you spend the next 6 months trying to protect him from the shape of his own life, you will end up with nothing, and he will end up with everything. And I have watched it happen to 200 women, and every single one of them was kinder than he deserved." Emily was quiet. Then she said, "What do I do first?" "Nothing," Ruth said. "You go home, you make dinner, you smile at him, and you don't touch a thing. That's it. That's the whole trick." Ruth put her glasses back on. "He thinks it's over. Let him keep thinking it." So Emily went home and made chicken. That was the part nobody ever believed afterward when people heard the story. That for 11 days, Emily Carter made dinner. She signed permission slips. She drove Toby to the dentist and sat in the waiting room reading a magazine from 2019. She washed her husband's shirts and hung them up and matched his socks. And every night at 11:30, when the house went quiet, she opened the laptop. Day 2, she found the Airbnb in Wisconsin. 6 weekends. Day 3, she found the second phone. Not the device, the bill. A line on the family plan she'd never noticed because it was labeled tablet, 18 months old. Same month the payments started. Day 5, she found the jewelry, $14,000 at a store on Rush Street, and the receipt had an engraving fee on it. And Emily sat there for a long moment before she typed the store's number into her phone and then deleted it without calling because Ruth had said don't. And Emily had spent her whole life being the person who followed the rules, and now finally, that was going to be useful. Day 7. Daniel came home with flowers. "What are these?" Emily said. "They're flowers." He was almost shy about it. I know it's not enough. I'm not saying it's enough." "Okay. He set them on the counter. "I've been thinking about what I said that night." He rubbed the back of his neck. "About the kids. I was scared." "That's not an excuse." "I was scared, and I said a horrible thing, and I've thought about it every day since." Emily looked at him. And here was the terrible part, the part she never told anyone, not even Ruth, for about 4 seconds. She wanted to believe him. 12 years is a long time. 12 years builds a groove in a person, and her whole body wanted to slide back into it, wanted to say, "Okay, we'll work on it." Wanted to be the woman who fixed things, because being the woman who fixed things was the only identity Emily Carter had ever been given, and she was very, very good at it. "Thank you," she said. He exhaled. I'm going to put these in water." That night she found the life insurance policy. He'd changed the beneficiary in January. Not to Olivia. That would have been simple. He'd changed it to a trust. And when Emily looked up the trust, the trustee was a man named Greg Halloran, and Greg Halloran was Daniel's college roommate, and Greg Halloran had been at their wedding, and Greg Halloran had held Lily when she was 4 days old. Emily sat back in the chair and said out loud to the empty kitchen, Greg knew." She thought about that for a long time. She thought about the 4th of July, 2 summers back, Greg on their patio, with a beer telling her she was the best thing that ever happened to Daniel. She thought about how he'd hugged her. She thought about how sincere he'd sounded. Emily understood something then that hurt worse than the photo had. It wasn't one man. It was a room of men. It was a system. Daniel had not been sneaking around alone in the dark. He had been living a second life in broad daylight with an audience, and the audience had clapped, and the audience had come to her house for barbecues, and the audience had eaten her food. She wrote Greg's name on the list. On day 9, Lily found her crying. That wasn't supposed to happen. Emily had rules. Emily cried between 5 o'clock and 5:06 a.m. with a hand over her mouth, and never anywhere else, and never in front of the kids, and she had held that line for 9 days with the discipline of a soldier. But it was 8:40 at night, and she was folding laundry, and she picked up one of Daniel's shirts, and something in her just came apart. "Mom." Emily turned her face away fast. "Hey, baby. Are you—" Lily stopped in the doorway, 15 years old, hoodie phone in hand. "Mom, I'm okay." "You're not okay. I'm tired." "Mom." And Lily's voice cracked in a way that broke Emily's heart in half. "Mom, I know." Emily went absolutely still. "You know what?" she said carefully. Lily didn't answer. She just held up her phone. Olivia Reed's profile. 19,000 followers now because the internet does what the internet does. "Sophie showed me," Lily said, 6 days ago. 6 days. Her daughter had known for 6 days. "Lily, that's our bedroom." Lily's face was doing something awful, trying to hold and failing. I recognized the mom. That's your wedding picture in the back. I recognized it, and I didn't say anything because I thought maybe you didn't know, and if you didn't know, then maybe I could just, come here. Maybe I could just not tell you and it wouldn't be real. Lily, come here." And her daughter, who was 5'7" and hadn't hugged her mother voluntarily in 2 years, crossed the room and folded into her like she was 6. They sat on the floor of the laundry room. Emily held her. "Does Toby know?" Emily asked. "No, God, no." "Okay. Mom, are you guys getting— I don't know yet." "That's a yes." Emily didn't answer. Lily pulled back and wiped her face with the sleeve of the hoodie, and then she said something that Emily would carry for the rest of her life. "He's been so nice lately," Lily said. "He took me for ice cream on Tuesday. He asked about my chem test." Her chin went. "He's being nice because he got caught, isn't he? He wasn't nice before. He's only nice now because he got caught." Emily opened her mouth and realized she had nothing to say because her 15-year-old had just diagnosed the entire marriage in 9 seconds faster than Emily had done it in 12 years. "Yeah," Emily said quietly. "I think that's right." Lily nodded. She was crying, and she nodded anyway, and she said, "Okay." Then she said, "Mom, don't let him make you the bad guy." "What?" "He does that." Lily's voice went hard in a way Emily had never heard from her. "He always does that. Like when you wanted to go back to work. And he said okay, but then for like a month he kept saying stuff about the kids being alone, and you didn't do it. And everyone thought you decided that." Lily looked at her. "You didn't decide that." Emily stared at her daughter. She had been 8 years old. She had been 8 years old, and she had watched it happen, and she had understood it, and Emily had not. "Go to bed," Emily whispered. "Mom, go to bed, sweetheart. I love you. Go to bed." Emily sat on the laundry room floor for another 20 minutes after that, and she was not crying anymore, and something in her had gone very still and very sharp. On day 10, Olivia Reed posted the video. It was a walkthrough, 30 seconds, music, slow pan across a kitchen island, a bowl of lemons, a set of copper pans on a hanging rack, morning light through a bay window. Caption, "Sunday, reset in the new place. Grateful." 19,000 people watched it. And Emily Carter watched it, and her blood turned to ice water because at second 11 in the reflection of the microwave door, you could see the corner of a hallway. Emily knew that hallway. It was the model unit at Riverbend Commons. It was one of Daniel's listings. Harrington Realty was selling that building, 12 units. And Daniel Carter had put his girlfriend in one of them, and she was filming it for the internet, and Emily sat at her kitchen table with her hand over her mouth and started laughing, actually laughing because it was so stupid. $2,200 a month. That unit rented for $4,100. He wasn't paying her rent. He was undercharging her out of the company's inventory and pocketing the difference in the paperwork. Or worse, he had never put a lease in the system at all. And if there was no lease, then Harrington Realty was carrying a vacant unit on its books that had a person living in it, and that person was posting videos of it to 19,000 strangers. Emily called Ruth at 11:15 at night. Ruth picked up on the second ring. "Tell me." "She's living in one of his listings." Silence. "She's filming in one of his listings," Emily said. "Ruth, it's on the market. It's actively on the market. There are showings." Ruth Behar said a word Emily had not expected from a woman that age. "Send me the video," Ruth said. "Right now. Screen record it before she deletes it. Do it now while I'm on the phone." "I already did." "You already—" "I did it 4 minutes ago," Emily said. "I've got the audio too." There was a pause, and then Ruth Behar said with something Emily had never heard directed at her in her entire adult life, respect, "Emily, where the hell have you been?" Day 11 was a Thursday. Daniel came home at 6 with a bottle of wine and a plan, and Emily could see the plan on him, the way you can see rain coming. "So," he said, uncorking it, "I've been thinking." "Okay." "Counseling." He poured 2 glasses. She didn't touch hers. "There's a guy Dave mentioned him. He's supposed to be excellent. Couples. Really good with this kind of thing." "This kind of thing." He put the bottle down. "I want to fix it. I'm telling you, I want to fix it. And I'll do whatever it takes. And I know I don't get to ask you for anything, but I'm asking." Emily looked at the wine. "I ended it," Daniel said. Her head came up. "Yeah." He nodded, and there was something almost proud in it. And that was the tell. That was the thing that gave him away completely. He wanted credit. "Sunday. I told her it's done. She lost her mind. She called me 40 times, but it's done. It's over. Sunday." Sunday. Emily said, "She posted a video of her new kitchen on Sunday." Daniel's face didn't move. "That's an old—" "Don't." Emily's voice was so quiet it barely existed. "Daniel, don't. I'm asking you not to. As a favor to me. Not to her. To me." He stood there with the corkscrew in his hand, and then he said, "You've been going through my stuff." There it was. "I've been going through our stuff," Emily said. "That's not—" He set the corkscrew down hard. "Emily, do you understand that some of that is not yours to look at? Some of that is company property. That's illegal. Say it." "I'm just saying there are lines, Em." "You want to talk to me about lines?" Emily stood up. "You, tonight, in this kitchen, you want to explain lines to me. I want to fix this, and you're building a case." And there it was, the whole thing, right out loud. Daniel heard it come out of his own mouth and stopped, and Emily watched him hear it, and for 1 second the mask was completely off, and what was underneath was not a husband or a father or even a cheater. It was a man calculating exposure. "That's what this is," Emily said slowly. "That's what the flowers were. That's what the counseling guy is. You're not sorry, Emily. You're scared." She almost laughed. "You're not scared of losing me. You've already lost me. You lost me 18 months ago. You just didn't notice because I kept making dinner. You're scared of Harrington." He didn't deny it. That was the thing. He had 100 chances in the next 4 seconds, and he did not deny it. "If this gets out," Daniel said very carefully, "there is no alimony. There is no house. There is no college fund. Do you understand? There's a hole where all of it used to be. So the money you stole is the money I'm supposed to protect. It's not stolen, it's structured." "Oh my God," Emily said. "It's an accounting question, Emily. It is a gray—" "You put a girlfriend in a listing. It is a gray area, and if you drag it into the light, everybody in this family bleeds and you can be right. Em, you can be so right, and we can lose everything. Is that what you want? To be right?" Emily was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Toby's hockey was $400. Daniel closed his eyes. $400 for the season," Emily said. "And you sat in that chair and told me we had to be responsible. And then you drove to Rush Street and spent $14,000 on jewelry and paid to have it engraved." His eyes opened. "What did it say?" Emily asked. "Don't." "What did the engraving say, Daniel?" "Emily, stop. What did it say?" And that was the only time in the entire 11 days that Emily Carter raised her voice one time, and it went through that house like a gunshot, and upstairs a door opened, and then very quietly closed again. Daniel stood in his kitchen and did not answer. Emily picked up her wine glass, walked to the sink, and poured it out. "I'd like you to sleep somewhere else tonight," she said. "This is my house." "Okay," Emily said. "Then I'll take the kids to my sister's and you can explain to Toby why." He stared at her. "You wouldn't." "Try me," Emily said, and something in her face made him pick up his keys. He stopped at the door. "Em," his voice had gone thin. 12 years. You'd blow up 12 years over—" "Say the end of that sentence," Emily said. "Please, I want to hear how you finish it." He didn't. He left. And Emily stood in her kitchen alone, and her hands were shaking now, finally an hour too late, the way they always do. She got Ruth on the phone at 8:15. "He's out of the house," Emily said. "Did you kick him out?" "He left." "Good. Don't call him. Don't text him." "Emily, listen, this is the window. He's going to do something stupid in the next 72 hours. They always do. He's going to move money, or he's going to call somebody at the firm and get ahead of it, or he's going to lawyer up. He'll call Greg." "Who's Greg?" "His college roommate. He's the trustee on the policy he changed in January." Ruth said, "The what?" Emily told her. There was a long silence. "Emily," Ruth said, "how much of this were you planning to mention to me?" "I found it on day 9. "Day 9. "I've been organizing," Emily said. "It's 400 pages. I wanted it clean before I gave it to you. I didn't want you to have to look for anything." Ruth Behar was quiet for so long that Emily thought she'd lost her. "You know," Ruth said finally, "in 30 years I've had exactly 2 clients like you." "What happened to them?" "They won," Ruth said. At 9:40 that night, Olivia Reed posted again. Emily had told herself she would stop looking. She had told herself that 14 times. And she looked anyway the way everyone does, and this one was different. It was a photo of a hand, a woman's hand, on the corner of a duvet, and on the wrist, a bracelet. And under it the caption, "2 years ago I was nobody. Today I'm building something real with someone who actually sees me. Some women spend their whole lives being comfortable. I'd rather be chosen." Emily read it twice. Then she scrolled to the comments, and someone had written, "Girl, are you living your best life, or are you a homewrecker? LOL." And Olivia had replied at 9:51, and Emily watched the reply appear in real time, watched it arrive on her screen while she was looking at it. You can't wreck a home that was already empty. If she was doing her job, I wouldn't have a story to post. Some women just refuse to accept when a man has moved on. Not my job to babysit her feelings. Emily sat there. She looked at it for a long time, and she thought about Toby crying in the car and wiping his face. She thought about Lily on the laundry room floor saying he's only nice now because he got caught. She thought about Greg Halloran on her patio with a beer in his hand, telling her she was the best thing that ever happened to Daniel. She thought about 11 invoices to a company that didn't exist. She thought about a 9-year-old boy who gave up hockey so a stranger could get a bracelet engraved. And Emily Carter, who had not thrown one single thing in 11 days, who had made chicken and matched socks and signed permission slips and cried on a schedule, felt the last thing inside her that had been holding the door shut just quietly step aside. Her thumb moved to the comment box. She did not type a paragraph. She did not type an accusation. She did not type any of the 400 pages sitting on a drive in her sock drawer. She typed 11 words. "That is my bedroom. And that man was still my husband." And she posted it under her own name with her own face on the profile at 10:04 p.m. on a Thursday. And then she set the phone down on the counter, and she turned it face down, and she put her hands flat on either side of it. The first reply came in 9 seconds. The second came in 11. By 10:06, the phone had started buzzing and would not stop buzzing so hard against the granite that it walked itself 2 inches to the left. And Emily Carter stood in her kitchen with her palms on the counter and her eyes closed and did not touch it. At 10:11, her phone rang. Daniel. She let it go. At 10:12, it rang again. At 10:13, Ruth Behar texted 3 words. "What did you do?" Emily typed back one line. "I told the truth. I didn't tell all of it." Ruth called instead of texting. Emily let it ring twice, then picked up. "Are you sitting down?" Ruth said. "I'm standing." "Sit down." Emily sat. "Read me exactly what you wrote. Word for word. Don't paraphrase." Emily read it. There was a silence, and then Ruth Behar said, "That's it. That's it. No names, no numbers, no accusation of anything." "No. You didn't say he stole. You didn't say she's in the listing. You didn't mention the invoices." "No." Another silence. Then Ruth said slowly, "Emily, I've been doing this since 1994, and I need you to understand something. If you had written one more sentence, I'd be driving to your house right now to unring a bell. But you wrote 11 words that are all verifiably true, and none of which are actionable." She exhaled. "That's not a comment. That's a deposition." Emily closed her eyes. "It just came out." "No, it didn't," Ruth said. "Nothing about you just comes out. You've been writing that sentence in your head for 11 days. Emily didn't answer because Ruth was right, and Emily hated that she was right, and she was also, for the first time in 11 days, not sorry. "Okay," Ruth said. "Here's the rule. Starting now, and I mean now, you do not respond to a single thing. Not a comment, not a message, not a phone call. Not from her, not from him, not from a reporter, not from your mother-in-law. If your own priest calls, you don't pick up. You are done talking. Do you understand me?" "Yes." "Say it back." "I'm done talking." "Good," Ruth said, "because they're not." The phone rang 41 times that night. Emily counted because counting was the only thing keeping her hands busy. Daniel called 19 times. A number she didn't recognize called 11. Greg Halloran called twice. And at 12:40 in the morning, Olivia Reed's account sent a direct message, and Emily read it standing in her dark kitchen in a bathrobe with her heart going like a bird in a box. Take it down. You have no idea what you just did. He's going to hate you for this, and it's going to be your own fault. Emily screenshotted it. Then at 12:52, a second one. I'm serious. Take it down or I'm posting everything. Emily screenshotted that too. And then she went upstairs and stood outside Lily's door for a long moment and did not go in because there was nothing to say that a 15-year-old could hold. And then she went to the guest room and lay down on top of the covers with her shoes still on and stared at the ceiling until the sky went gray. At 6:15 in the morning, Daniel came home. She heard the garage. She heard him take the stairs 2 at a time. She sat up just as the guest room door came open, and he was standing there in yesterday's shirt unshaven, and Emily had been married to this man for 12 years and had never once seen him look like this. Take it down, he said. No, Emily. He came in and shut the door behind him quietly because the kids were asleep, and even now, even wrecked, he was managing the optics. Take it down, right now, please. I'm asking you. No. Do you know what you've done? I know exactly what I did, Emily said. I wrote 3 facts. It's my bedroom. You're my husband. That's it. It's got 11,000... He stopped. Started again. It's got 11,000 likes, Emily. On her post. People are screenshotting it. It's on other accounts now. It's on those accounts that just repost this stuff. There's one with 1 million followers. Okay. His voice cracked on it. Okay, Marcy. Hall saw it. Marcy Hall from the office, Emily. She texted me at midnight with a screenshot and a question mark. Emily said nothing. Daniel put both hands on his head and turned in a circle, and Emily watched him do it and felt nothing at all. And that emptiness scared her more than the anger had. You did this on purpose, he said. Yes. He stopped turning. You wanted me to know I did it on purpose, Emily said. So yes, I did it on purpose. Why? And Emily looked at him and she said, because she called our home empty. Daniel's mouth opened. She wrote it in a comment box at 9:51 last night, Emily said. You can't wreck a home that was already empty. Our home, Daniel. The one with your son's shoes by the door. The one where I made your lunch for 12 years. Her voice did not rise. She said it was empty, and you let her say it. You've been letting her say things like that for 18 months, and not one time did you write back, don't talk about my wife. That's not one time. He didn't have anything. She watched him not have anything. Take it down, he said again, weaker. No. Emily, they're going to look. And there it was. Emily went very still. Who's going to look? She said. Daniel's face changed. He'd said too much, and he knew it a half-second late, and that half-second was the whole story of him. Nobody. It's nothing. Who's going to look, Daniel? Emily. Harrington's going to look, she said. Isn't it because a woman with 19,000 followers has been posting videos of a unit that's on your firm's active inventory, and now she's famous for about 6 hours, and somebody at that office has already recognized the countertop? Daniel Carter sat down on the edge of the guest bed. He sat down like his legs had quit. Yeah, he said. And that was the first true thing he had said to her since March. Emily didn't move. Cindy Boyle called me at 5:40, Daniel said to the floor. She does the listing photos. She said, Dan, is that Riverbend 4C? Is somebody living in 4C? He laughed one horrible little sound. There's a showing today, at 2. There's a showing today. Emily and I couldn't get her to answer the phone. Emily said, you had a showing scheduled in the unit where your girlfriend lives. It's not. You scheduled a showing in the... I moved it 4 times. His voice broke completely. I've been moving it since April. I keep moving it. And Bill's been asking, and I said the seller wanted to hold, and there is no seller. Emily, the firm owns it. The firm owns it, and I've been... He stopped. He put his face in his hands. And Emily Carter sat on a guest bed at 6:31 in the morning and watched her husband come apart and understood that she was not looking at a man who had made a mistake. She was looking at a man who had built a machine and had been feeding it for 18 months and could not turn it off. How much, she said. He didn't look up. Daniel, how much? You've seen it. I've seen 49,500 in fake consulting, Emily said. I want to know what I haven't seen. Silence. Daniel, 140, he said. Emily's ears rang. 140,000. It's not gone, Emily. There's a rebate structure on the $140,000. There's a rebate structure. If Riverbend closes out, I can stop. Emily stood up. Stop talking, just stop. And then she said the thing she had not let herself think for 11 days. Does Bill Harrington know? Daniel looked up at her. And Emily saw in his face an answer she had absolutely not been prepared for. Not all of it, he said. The room tilted. Not all of it, Emily repeated. What does that mean, not all of it? It means, he wiped his mouth, it means there are things at that firm that have been done a certain way for a long time, and I didn't invent them, and I'm not the only one, and if this turns into an actual audit, then it isn't just me who... He stopped. Emily stared at him. You're not the only one, she said slowly. I'm not the only one. Who else? Emily, don't. Who else? You don't want to know that. Who else, Daniel? And Daniel Carter said Greg. Emily sat back down. Greg Halloran does Harrington's books, Daniel said. He's done them since 2016. He's been signing off on... He shook his head. Emily, when I say I'm not the only one, I'm telling you it's a practice. And when I say it's a practice, I'm telling you that if you hand 400 pages to somebody, you're not ending my career. You're ending 9 careers, and one of them belongs to a man who's held both of our children. The house was very quiet. Somewhere above them, a bed creaked. Toby turning over. Emily said, That's why you made him trustee. Daniel didn't answer. That's why he's on the policy, Emily said. Not because he's your friend, because you've got him. Because if he ever gets nervous, you've got a piece of him, and he knows it. Her voice had gone almost gentle with horror. You don't have friends, Daniel. You have collateral. That's not fair. Was it fair when he stood on our patio and told me I was the best thing that ever happened to you? Daniel closed his eyes. Was it fair, Emily said, that every single person at that 4th of July knew and ate my potato salad and hugged me at the door? They didn't all... How many? Emily, how many people knew Daniel? And Daniel Carter said, Enough. At 7:04 a.m., Lily walked into the kitchen and stopped dead because both her parents were sitting at the table and neither one had slept and nobody was pretending anymore. Hey, Emily said, cereal's out. Lily looked at her father. Daniel said, Morning, Lil, and Lily said, Don't. It was one word. Emily watched it land on him like a brick. Lily, he said, I'm going to eat at Sophie's. She grabbed her bag. She stopped at the door, and then without turning around, she said, Dad, are the other kids at school going to see it? Daniel said, Nobody's going to see anything. Okay, Lily said in a voice Emily would hear in her sleep for a year. That's a lie, but okay. The door shut. Daniel put his head down on his own kitchen table. She's 15, he said. She's 15, Emily agreed. At 8:50, Emily's phone rang from a Chicago number. She let it go to voicemail because Ruth had told her not to talk to anyone. The voicemail said, Mrs. Carter, my name is Nadia Whitcomb. I'm with the Tribune. I'm not calling about the social media thing. I'm calling about Riverbend Commons. I'd like to ask you about a unit. Please call me back. Emily sat down on the floor of her own hallway. Ruth picked up on the first ring this time. A reporter called, Emily said, about the Post, about the building. Ruth Behar said very quietly, Well, there it is. Ruth, I know you didn't. Ruth's voice was steady. Emily, listen to me. You didn't do this. You wrote 11 words. You know who did this? 19,000 people looked at a video of a kitchen, and about 40 of them work in real estate in this city, and about 4 of them recognized a unit they'd walked through. That's it. That's the whole thing. She built her own bomb and stood on it. He said there are other people. Pause. What? He said it's not just him. He said Greg Halloran does the firm's books, and he called it a practice. Ruth said nothing for a long moment. Then, Emily, I need you to do something today, and I need you to not ask me why. Okay? Take everything off your home computer. Everything. Cloud drive the whole thing. Bring me the physical copy and don't make another one. Why? You said you wouldn't ask why. Emily said, You think somebody's going to come looking for it. I think, Ruth said carefully, that until this morning, this was a divorce with a fraud problem in it. And as of about 6 hours ago, it's a fraud with a divorce in it. Those are very different animals, and the second one has friends. Emily drove to Ruth's office at 10:20 with 400 pages in a grocery bag on the passenger seat and her hands at 10 and 2 like a student driver. At 11:15, she was still there when Ruth's assistant knocked and said, "Ruth, there's a Daniel Carter downstairs." Ruth looked at Emily. Emily said, "He followed me." "Do you want to see him?" "No." "Then you don't." Ruth turned to the assistant. "Tell him if he wants to speak to my client, he can retain counsel and have them call me. Use those words, exactly those." The assistant left. Emily sat with her hands in her lap. "He's going to say I'm punishing him," she said. "He is." "He's going to say I did this to hurt him." "He is." "Ruth." Emily looked up. "Did I—" And Ruth Behar leaned back in her chair and looked at her for a long time. "Yeah," she said, "a little." Emily's throat closed. "And you know what?" Ruth said. "So what? You're a human being. He humiliated you in your own bed and let a 26-year-old post it for likes, and you wrote 11 true words. If that's your worst sin in this whole file, you're doing better than anyone I've represented in 30 years. She tapped the grocery bag. "The question isn't whether you're angry. The question is whether the angry part is driving. And Emily, it's not. Look at this. Look at what you brought me. There's no rage in this bag. There's a ledger." At 2:10 that afternoon, Emily's phone buzzed. It was Lily. "Mom, did you see Emily's stomach dropped? See what she deleted? Everything Olivia Reed's account was gone. Every post, every video. The bedroom, the coffee cup, the bracelet, the kitchen with the copper pans. 19,000 followers and 18 months of a life wiped at 1:58 in the afternoon. And in its place, one-story white text on a black background, up for 24 hours. I was lied to. I was told he was separated. I am a victim in this too. Please stop." Emily read it 4 times, and she thought genuinely for one clean second, maybe that's true. Then she scrolled up in her own screenshots to 9:51 the night before and read, "You can't wreck a home that was already empty," and to the direct message at 12:52 that said, "Take it down or I'm posting everything." And Emily Carter felt the last drop of pity dry up in her chest. She didn't post it. She didn't repost anything. She sent all of it to Ruth and went to pick up her son from school. Toby got in the car with his backpack and his jacket half on and said, "Mom, is Dad living here still?" Emily's hands tightened on the wheel. "Why do you ask, buddy?" "Because Mason said his mom said Dad's in trouble." Emily pulled the car over. She actually pulled the car over on Belden and put it in park and turned around in her seat. "Toby," she said, "look at me." He looked at her, 9-years-old freckles hair going every direction. "Some grown-up stuff is happening," Emily said. "It's not about you. It's not about Lily. You didn't do anything, and neither did she. Are you getting divorced?" Emily had promised herself she wouldn't lie to them. She had promised herself that in a kitchen at 3:15 in the morning 11 days ago, and it had felt very noble at the time, and now here it was, a 9-year-old in the back seat, and she understood why everybody lies. "I think so," she said. Toby looked out the window. Then he said, "Is it because of hockey?" And Emily Carter, who had held it together for 12 days, who had made chicken and matched socks and cried on a schedule, put her forehead on the steering wheel of a parked Honda on Belden Avenue and sobbed. "No," she said. "No, baby. No, it's not because of hockey. God, it's not because of hockey. You said we couldn't afford it." "I know. And then you were sad for a long time after." "I know, buddy. So I thought." And his voice went small. "I thought if I said it was okay, then it would be okay." Emily got out of the car, opened the back door, and hugged her son on the sidewalk for a very long time while traffic went by. At 4:40, Bill Harrington called Daniel into his office. Emily learned this later in a deposition, and she would always think it was the strangest way to learn what happened to your own life. At 4:52, Daniel Carter was placed on administrative leave pending an internal review. At 5:10, his keycard stopped working. At 5:30, he called Emily. She let it ring. At 5:31, he called again. At 5:33, he texted, "Please. Not as your husband, just pick up." She picked up. "They took my laptop," Daniel said. Emily said nothing. "They came into my office and they took my laptop and Cindy walked me to the elevator." His voice was strange flat like a recording. 12 years, Em. Cindy walked me to the elevator like I was a vendor. Daniel, Bill asked me one question. He laughed. One. He said, "Dan, is there a woman living in 4C? And I said..." He stopped. "What did you say?" Emily asked. And Daniel Carter said, "I said no." Emily closed her eyes. Oh, Daniel. What was I supposed to say? Yes, Emily said. You were supposed to say yes. That was it. That was the whole thing. 20 seconds of your life. You could have said, "Yes, I'm sorry, I'll fix it. I'll pay it back," and you'd have been fired and you'd have been fine. I'd have been... And instead, you lied to Bill Harrington's face on the record in a review after he already knew the answer. Her voice was shaking. Do you understand what you just did? You didn't have a fraud problem an hour ago. You had a scandal. Now you have a record. Silence. Then Daniel said quietly, "Emily, I need the files." She stopped breathing. What? The stuff you pulled. His voice had changed again. Careful now. Reasonable. The client voice. The expense stuff. I need it. Because there's context, Em. There's context you don't have, and if I can put it in order before Monday, if I can walk in there with the actual... You want the evidence. I want context. You want me to hand you the evidence, Emily said, so you can decide which parts of it exist. Emily, we are on the same side here. No, she said. We're not. You're my wife. And you told Bill Harrington no, Emily said. So we already know what your word is worth in a room. He was quiet. Then he said, "It's in the house, isn't it?" Every hair on Emily's arms stood up. "Good night, Daniel," she said. "Emily." She hung up. And then she stood in her kitchen at 5:41 on a Friday evening and understood all at once with a clarity that made her sick why Ruth Behar had told her that morning to take everything out of the house and not ask why. She called Ruth. "He asked me for the files," Emily said. Ruth said one word, "Good." Good. Was it on the phone? Yes. Did he say the word files? He said, Emily thought. He said, "The stuff you pulled," then he said, "context." Write it down, Ruth said. Right now, tonight, with the time. Every word you remember. Do it before you sleep because tomorrow you'll be sure and wrong, and tonight you're unsure and right. Ruth. Yeah. He asked if it was in the house. The pause on the other end went on a long time. Emily, Ruth said, "Does he still have a key?" At 8:20 that night, a locksmith Emily had found on her phone 40 minutes earlier stood in her front hall while Toby watched him from the stairs like it was a magic show. At 8:55, Emily texted Daniel one sentence, the only one she sent him all week, and she sent it on Ruth's instruction word for word. "I've changed the locks. Ruth Behar will contact your attorney about a schedule for the children. Please don't come to the house." He didn't answer for 9 minutes. Then he wrote, "You've made me a stranger to my own kids." Emily read it, and she thought about a boy on a sidewalk saying, "I thought if I said it was okay, then it would be okay." She didn't write back. At 11:15, Greg Halloran called. Emily hadn't planned to answer. She was going to let it ring the way she'd let everything ring for 2 days. But her thumb slipped, or maybe it didn't, and then his voice was in her ear, and she hadn't heard it since the 4th of July. She said nothing. Emily, "Hey, it's Greg." A breath. "Listen, I know how this looks. Can I say one thing?" "You held my daughter," Emily said. Silence. "You held her when she was 4 days old," Emily said. "In my living room. You cried." Emily, "You stood on my patio 2 summers ago with a beer in your hand, and you told me I was the best thing that ever happened to him." Her voice was perfectly level. "And you knew." Greg Halloran said, "Yeah." "How long?" Emily, "Don't." "How long, Greg?" And Greg Halloran, who had signed off on Harrington's book since 2016, said, "Since the beginning." Emily stood there. "Why are you calling me?" she said. "Because," his voice cracked, "because I'm going to be asked things, Em, next week. by people with subpoenas. And I wanted to be the one who told you before you heard it that I'm going to tell them the truth. All of it. Emily's heart was pounding. All of it, she repeated. All of it, Greg said, including my part. And then before she could speak, he said the thing that changed everything, and it came out of him like something he'd been carrying for 18 months and could not carry one more day. Emily, he's been moving money for 6 weeks, since before you found the photo. The floor went out from under her. What? He started in April, Greg said. The Fairview Commission. He rerouted it. Emily, he's been getting ready to leave. She couldn't speak. The photo didn't blow it up, Greg said quietly. The photo just made it early. Emily said, say that again. Emily, Greg, say it again, slowly. The Fairview Commission. His voice was hoarse. It closed in April. $406,000 to the firm Dan's cut was $91. That money never went where it goes. Where did it go? It went to a receivable that doesn't have a name on it yet. That's not English, Greg. Say it in English. He was quiet a second. Then he parked it. He put it somewhere it doesn't look like anything, and it sits there, and when he's ready, he moves it once, and it lands as his. When was he ready? I don't know. Guess. Emily. You've been guessing for 6 weeks, Emily said. That's why you're calling me at 11 o'clock at night. You've had a guess for 6 weeks, and it's been eating you alive. So guess out loud, Greg. One time. For me. The line hissed. Then Greg Halloran said, fall. I think after Toby's birthday. Emily's knees went. She sat down on the kitchen floor with her back against the cabinet and her phone pressed to her ear so hard it hurt. Toby's birthday was October 4th. He was going to wait for the birthday, she said. He was going to do the cake. Her voice came out strange, almost wondering. He was going to stand in my kitchen and do the cake and sing and take the picture, and then he was going to leave. I don't know that. You do. Greg didn't answer which was the answer. Emily looked at the ceiling of her own kitchen and started to laugh one broken little sound, and it scared her, so she stopped. Greg, she said, one more question and then I'm going to hang up and I don't think we'll ever talk again. Okay. Did he ever say anything about me in all that time? Anything at all? The pause went on so long, she thought he'd hung up. He said you'd be fine, Greg said. He said it a lot, actually, like he was practicing. He'd say, Em will be fine, Em's tough, Em always figures it out. Emily closed her eyes. He wasn't complimenting you, Greg said. He was writing himself a permission slip. At 11:52, Emily hung up. At 11:54, she called Ruth Bihar, who answered on the second ring in bed and did not complain about it once. Greg Halloran just told me Daniel's been moving money since April, Emily said. Ruth said, say it again with numbers. Fairview, $91,000 commission. Greg says it's parked in an unnamed receivable. The silence on that line was different from all the other silences. Emily could hear a lamp click on. Emily, Ruth said, and her voice had gone very slow and very careful. Do you understand what he just handed you? I think so. No, listen. Everything else in that bag, the invoices, the girl, the unit, all of that is a man being a fool. Fools get fired. Fools get divorced. A pause. But this is different. This is intent. This is a man who decided in April to leave in October and started taking the money out ahead of the door. Which means every single thing he said to you in that kitchen was a performance with a deadline on it, Ruth said. The flowers, the counseling guy. I ended it Sunday. Emily, he wasn't trying to save the marriage. He was trying to run out the clock. Emily put her hand over her mouth. And it means, Ruth said, that his custody threat is now the funniest thing I've read this year. At 12:20 in the morning, Emily wrote it all down. Every word Greg said with times in a notebook and pen, the way Ruth had taught her. At 12:50, she looked at her own handwriting and realized her hands were steady again and understood that something in her had finished changing and there was no way back. Saturday, 7:15 a.m. Daniel's mother called. Emily let it go. At 7:22, she called again. At 7:24, a text, Emily. I know you're awake. I raised him. Give me 5 minutes. Emily called her back because Carol Carter was 78 and had taught her how to make pie crust and had sat with her for 11 hours the night Toby had the fever. "Emily, honey," Carol's voice was thin. "What is happening?" "Carol. He came here at midnight. He slept in his old room. He is not eating." A breath. "He says you put something on the internet." "I did." "He says you're trying to have him arrested." Emily said nothing. "Emily." Carol's voice wobbled. "Sweetheart, are you trying to have my son arrested?" And Emily Carter stood in her kitchen and made a choice. "Carol," she said, "did he tell you about the girl?" Silence. "Did he tell you about the money?" "He said there were expenses that—" "He put a 26-year-old woman in an apartment his company owns and paid for her life with the firm's money for 18 months, Emily said. "Not my money, not our money, the firm's money. He billed fake invoices to a company that doesn't exist, $140,000, Carol, and then he told me we couldn't afford $400 for Toby's hockey." The sound Carol Carter made was one Emily would hear for the rest of her life. "No," Carol said. "Yes." "No, honey, that's not—" "Ask him," Emily said gently. "Carol, I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm asking you to ask him. And then listen to how long it takes him to answer." Carol was crying now. "He was such a good boy." "I know. He was such a good boy, Emily. I know he was. What do I do?" And Emily said, "You be his mother, that's all. Somebody has to be, and it can't be me anymore." At 9 a.m. Saturday, Emily took the kids to the pancake place on Southport because Ruth had told her, keep the small things, and because Toby had been quiet since the sidewalk. Lily ordered for both of them. Emily noticed that. 15 years old, and she just did it smoothly, like she'd been rehearsing being an adult in the mirror. Toby said, "Are we poor now?" "No," Emily said. Mason said, "Mason's mom doesn't know anything," Lily said. "She said Dad's in trouble." "Buddy," Emily put her fork down. "Look at me. Dad made some mistakes at work, big ones, and he's going to have to deal with them." "Is he going to jail?" The table went quiet. Lily was looking at her mother very steadily. "I don't know," Emily said, and Lily said, "Thank you." Emily blinked. For what? For not saying no. At 2:40 that afternoon, the Tribune reporter called again. "Nadia Whitcomb." Emily didn't answer. The voicemail was 31 seconds long, and Emily played it 4 times. "Mrs. Carter, I'll be brief. I'm not writing a piece about a marriage. I've got 2 sources at Harrington confirming a residential unit was occupied off-book at Riverbend, and 1 source telling me it isn't the only one. I'm going to write this with you or without you. I'd rather it was accurate." Emily called Ruth. "Do not," Ruth said before Emily even finished the sentence. "Ruth, do not call that woman. She's going to write it anyway." "Let her." Ruth's voice was iron. "Emily, listen to me. Right now you are a wife who wrote 11 true words and hired a lawyer. That's it. That's your whole footprint. The second you talk to a reporter, you become a source, and a source has a motive, and a motive is the only thing his lawyer needs to turn all 400 pages of your beautiful work into a bitter woman's revenge project. That's not what it is. I know that. You know that." Ruth exhaled. "But you have made it impossible to say so far, and I'm begging you not to hand them the sentence." Emily said, "So I just let it happen." "You let it happen," Ruth said. "That's the whole discipline, honey. The truth doesn't need you to carry it anymore. You already put it down where people could find it." At 6:15 Sunday morning, 1 week to the hour since Emily had stood in her kitchen holding a bakery bag, Daniel came to the house. She heard the car. She was already awake. She'd been awake since 4. He didn't use the key because the key didn't work anymore, and Emily watched through the front window as her husband of 12 years stood on his own porch and tried it anyway twice before he knocked. She opened the door and stood in it. "The kids are asleep," she said. "I know." "Then why are you here?" Daniel looked terrible, not tired, diminished like something had been let out of him. "Can I come in?" "No." He nodded like he'd expected it. "Okay. Say what you came to say." He looked at his hands. Then he said, "Fairview." Emily's heart went hard in her chest. "Greg called you," Daniel said. "Yes. What did he tell you?" And Emily, who had spent 12 years answering this man's questions, said, "No." "What? You don't get to interview me on my own porch," she said. "You tell me. That's how this works now." Daniel's jaw moved. And then for the first time in 18 months and maybe in his whole life, Daniel Carter stopped performing. "I was going to leave in October," he said. Emily didn't move. "After Toby's birthday." He said it to the porch light. I had it worked out. I'd do the party. I'd do the whole thing. And then that week I was going to sit you down and say it had been dead for years and I'd tried, and I'd already have the Fairview money out where you couldn't see it, and you'd get the house. I wasn't going to take the house. Stop. And I told myself that was decent. That's the part I want you to know. I actually told myself that was decent. Stop. He stopped. Emily said, "Say the number." "What? How many days were you going to look at my son across a birthday cake knowing you'd already taken the money out of his college fund's neighborhood?" Daniel's face broke. 161, he said. She stared at him. "I counted," he whispered. "That's the Emily. That's the part I can't. I counted the days. Every morning, I woke up and I counted." And Emily Carter felt something she had not expected to feel, something she was ashamed of for years afterward. She felt sorry for him. Not enough. Not nearly enough. But for about 4 seconds, standing in her doorway at 6:20 on a Sunday morning, she looked at the man she'd married and saw a person who had built a cage out of small decisions and had been living in it alone, counting. "Daniel," she said, "I know. Why didn't you just say it?" And her voice finally broke after 12 days. "In April, in March, 2 years ago, you could have said, 'I'm not happy,' and I would have Daniel. I would have listened. I would have been devastated, and I would have listened. I would have let you go." "I know." "So why?" And Daniel Carter said the truest thing he ever said to her. "Because if I left, I'd be the guy who left," he said. "And if you found out, I'd be the guy who got caught. But if I managed it, if I did it right, if I did it slow, I got to be the guy who tried." Emily stood there. "That's it," she said. "That's what all of it was for. So you could be the guy who tried." "Yeah," Daniel said. She almost laughed. She almost, God help her, almost laughed in his face. "You burned down our whole life," she said, "so you could tell a story about yourself." He didn't argue. At 6:31, Emily said, "I'm not going to the papers." His head came up. "I'm not going to the papers, and I'm not posting anything else, and I'm not calling anybody at your office." She held the doorframe. "Not because I forgive you. I want you to understand that clearly, Daniel, because I know you, and I know that in about 6 months, you're going to tell somebody I softened. So hear me now. I'm not doing it because my son is 9, and someday he's going to be able to search your name," Emily said. "And whatever's there, he's going to read. And I'm not going to be the reason a 9-year-old reads that. That's it. That's the entire reason. It has nothing to do with you." Daniel's eyes were wet. "Thank you," he said. "Don't." Emily shook her head. "Don't thank me. Everything I have goes to Ruth, and Ruth gives it to whoever asks for it under oath. And if a subpoena comes to this house, I will answer every single question completely. I'm not protecting you. I'm just not selling you." He nodded slowly. "That's the difference," Emily said. "And you'll never understand it, and that's fine." At 6:40, he asked to see the kids. "Not today," Emily said. "Emily, not today. Not on a Sunday morning with no warning because you couldn't sleep." She kept her voice level. "Ruth's talking to your attorney about a schedule. It'll be a real schedule, and you'll keep it, and they'll be able to count on it. That's what they get, not this." "They're my kids." "They are," Emily said, "and you're going to have to be somebody they can plan around. That's the whole job now, Daniel. That's the entire job." He stood there for a second longer. Then he said, "Was any of it real?" And Emily Carter said, "For me, all of it." She shut the door. At 8 o'clock that morning, she made pancakes badly, and Toby ate 4. Monday, 9:15 a.m. Harrington Realty Group opened an internal audit. Wednesday, Greg Halloran resigned before they could ask him to. Thursday, the Tribune ran 900 words on page 3 of the business section under a headline about occupancy irregularities at a Lincoln Park development. Emily's name was not in it. Neither was Olivia's. Daniels was once in the 11th paragraph identified as an executive on administrative leave. 900 words. That was all. Emily read it standing at her counter and thought about the 11,000 likes and the 19,000 followers and the accounts with 1 million people on them, and she thought that's the thing nobody tells you. The internet had screamed for 2 days about a bedsheet. The actual crime got 900 words on page 3 and no picture. At 3:40 that afternoon, Olivia Reed showed up at Emily's house. Emily saw her from this window and did not open the door, and Olivia knocked anyway 6 times and then stood there. And then she said through the door, loud enough for the whole street, "I know you can see me." Emily opened it. She was smaller than Emily expected. That was the first thing. 26 years old, no makeup, hair in a knot, a bag on her shoulder, and she was shaking. "You ruined my life," Olivia said. Emily said nothing. Do you understand what I lost? Everything. My accounts, my brands, I had a contract, I had a skincare contract, and they pulled it in 4 hours. Okay? Olivia's voice went up. 11 words. You wrote 11 words in my whole... You wrote them first, Emily said. Olivia stopped. You wrote, "That man was always meant to be mine," on a photograph of my bedroom, Emily said quietly. And then you wrote that my home was empty. And then you sent me a message at 12:52 in the morning telling me to take it down or you'd post everything. Emily tilted her head. I didn't do anything to you, Olivia. I answered you, one time. Olivia's face did something complicated. He told me you knew, she said. Emily went still. He told me you knew. Olivia's voice cracked. He said it was open. He said you had an arrangement and you didn't care and you were staying for the house. Emily said, when did he tell you that? The whole time since the beginning, he said. She stopped and put her hand over her mouth, and Emily watched a 26-year-old woman realize something in real time standing on a porch, and it was one of the worst things Emily ever watched. He said you were fine, Olivia whispered. Emily closed her eyes. Em'll be fine. Em's tough. Em always figures it out. Yeah, Emily said. He says that. Olivia was crying now, ugly, no phone anywhere. I'm not a bad person, she said. I don't know what you are, Emily said honestly. But I'll tell you the one thing I do know because nobody's going to tell you and you're 26. She waited until Olivia looked at her. He didn't lie to you to get you into bed. He lied to you so he wouldn't have to be a man who did something wrong. You were never the point, Olivia. You were the paperwork. Olivia made a sound. He did the same thing to me for 12 years, Emily said. He's not going to stop. Whoever's next, he'll tell her you were unstable. He'll tell her I was cold. He'll tell her he tried. She shrugged, and it was the tiredest thing she'd ever done. He's already telling somebody, right now, today. Did he love me? Emily looked at her for a long moment. He loved being wanted, she said. That's not nothing, but it isn't you. Olivia stood on the porch and cried. And Emily Carter, and she never fully explained this to anyone, not to Ruth, not to Lily, not to any of the women who wrote to her later, went inside and came back with a glass of water and handed it to her. That was all. She didn't invite her in. She didn't forgive her. She didn't say it was okay, because it wasn't, and it never would be. She just didn't leave a crying kid on a porch with nothing. Go home, Olivia, she said. And get your own lawyer because they're going to ask you where the rent came from, and you better be able to say you didn't know, which I think is true. Emily paused. Don't let anyone tell you it isn't. Olivia looked up. Why are you being nice to me? She said. And Emily said, I'm not. I'm just not him. She shut the door. At 5:50 that evening, Emily filed. It was less dramatic than she'd imagined. Ruth's assistant did most of it. Emily signed her own name 11 times and thought absurdly 11 again, and then it was done, and she walked out onto Wacker Drive into the noise of a Thursday and stood on the sidewalk while everyone went around her. She called nobody. She just stood there for a minute and felt her own life for the first time in 12 years belonged to her. Then she got on the Brown line because she'd sold the second car 3 days earlier, and she went home and made dinner. The custody threat never materialized. Not once. Not a single filing. Ruth told her later over bad Thai food, "You want to know the truth?" The second he had a lawyer, his lawyer read the file, and I guarantee the first thing out of that man's mouth was, "Dan, whatever you do, do not go near the kids in front of a judge." Why? Because you didn't have to prove he was a bad father, Ruth said. You just had to be able to prove he took his son's hockey money and had a bracelet engraved with it. Emily, no judge in Cook County, survives reading that page with a straight face. Emily said, "I never wanted to use Toby that way." "You didn't," Ruth said. "That's what nobody's going to understand. You never brought it up once. It was just sitting there." She pointed with a chopstick. "That's the whole thing about a ledger, honey. You don't have to yell. It just sits there being true." The settlement took 4 months. It was not a fortune. It was never going to be a fortune, because a man under investigation doesn't have a fortune. He has a problem with a number attached. The house went. The Fairview money went back to Harrington in a repayment agreement Emily never read. Daniel avoided charges by paying back $141,000 he did not have, which meant his mother paid a portion of it, which was a thing Emily made herself not think about. What Emily got was the college accounts untouched in her name, with him legally unable to touch them. Support with teeth. And a clause Ruth put in that Emily didn't understand for a year, which required disclosure of income from any source, which meant that for as long as her children were minors, Daniel Carter had to hand a woman named Ruth Behar his numbers once a year and let her look at them. "That's the punishment," Ruth said, signing it. "Not the money, the looking." In March, Emily moved. 2 bedrooms and a den near the park, a 4th-floor walk-up with a radiator that banged. Toby got the small room and didn't complain once, which somehow was worse. Lily took the den and hung a curtain in the doorway and called it European. The first night, Emily sat on the floor because the couch hadn't come yet, and Toby came out at 11 and said, "Mom, yeah, buddy. It's loud here." "It is." He sat down next to her. "I like it, though." "Yeah, nobody's whispering," Toby said. Emily didn't understand. "At the old house," he said, "you guys used to whisper, like all the time, even when you weren't mad." He shrugged. "It's not like that here." Emily put her arm around her 9-year-old and looked at a wall with nothing on it. 2 weeks later, Lily said at dinner out of nowhere, "Mom, can I ask you something and you won't get weird?" "Probably not, but try." "Do you regret it?" Lily pushed Rice around. "The comment? Like if you hadn't written it, would we still be at the house?" And Emily thought about October 4th and a cake and 161 days. "No," she said. "We'd have been out of that house by Halloween. I just wouldn't have known why." Lily was quiet. "So it saved us 4 months," she said. "No," Emily said. "It saved us the 4 months where I'd have believed him." Lily nodded slowly, and then she said, "Mom, that's the first thing you've said in a year that makes sense." At 11:30 that night, Emily's phone buzzed. It was a message request from a stranger. "You don't know me. I'm in Ohio. Someone screenshotted your comment and it went around a group I'm in. I read it 8 months ago and I've read it every day since. I found out about my husband in November. I have 3 kids. I don't know why I'm writing you. I guess I just want to know one thing. How did you know what to save?" Emily sat on the floor of her small living room and the radiator banged and she read it 4 times. And then she started typing. She wrote back 1 line first at 11:41 because the truth was she didn't have an answer yet. "I didn't know what to save. I saved everything. That's the only trick there is." The woman in Ohio wrote back in 90 seconds. "Everything like what?" And Emily Carter sat on the floor of a 4th-floor walk-up with a radiator banging behind her and typed for 2 hours and 11 minutes. She told her about the credit card statements and the recurring charge that hides in plain sight because it looks like a subscription. She told her to photograph the mail before he gets home. She told her that a joint account can be emptied in 40 seconds and a screenshot of a balance is worth more than a memory of one. She told her not to say anything to him, not one word, not yet. And she told her that the hardest part wouldn't be the finding. It would be the 11 days of making dinner afterward. At 1:52 in the morning, the woman wrote, "I don't think I can do that." Smile at him. "I don't think I can." Emily wrote, "You can. You've been doing it for years. You just didn't know it was a skill." The woman didn't answer for 4 minutes. Then she wrote, "What's your name?" And Emily looked at that for a long moment because it was a real question. Not are you the woman from the comment, not are you the wife. Just what's your name? Emily, she typed. My name's Denise. Okay, Denise, go to bed. Screenshot the card statement first. Emily, yes. Thank you for not telling me to leave. And Emily sat there with her back against the wall and understood something she would spend the next 3 years trying to explain to people who wanted a simpler story. Nobody had ever told her to leave either. That wasn't what she'd needed. What she'd needed was somebody to tell her what to write down. The next morning she was late getting Toby to school because she'd slept through the alarm for the first time since March. You look bad, Toby said in the car. Thanks, buddy. Like tired bad, not ugly bad. That's a real relief. Were you up on your phone? Yes. That's what you always tell Lily not to do. Emily said, You are correct, and I don't want to talk about it. Toby was quiet for a block. Then he said, Mom, is Dad coming Saturday? Her hands did the thing on the wheel. They still did the thing 7 months later. Yes, she said. For sure. For sure? It's in the schedule? Okay. He looked out the window. Because last time he said Saturday, and then he said Sunday. That was in February. It's not February. Okay, Toby said again, and Emily heard the whole thing in it, the whole of what a 9-year-old learns when he learns that adults can be weather. She pulled up at the school. Hey, she said. Toby, if he says Sunday, you tell me, and I'll call Ruth, and Ruth will call his lawyer, and it will get fixed. That's the whole point of the schedule. You don't have to hold it. That's not your job. Toby considered this. Ruth's kind of scary, he said. Ruth is extremely scary. That's why she's on our side. He grinned and got out, and Emily sat in the parking lot for a minute with her hands in her lap and thought, 7 months. It had been 7 months, and this was the first morning she'd been late for a reason that wasn't grief. Denise from Ohio wrote every day for 2 weeks. Then it was Denise and a woman named Priya from Sacramento who found Emily the same way through a screenshot in a group chat in a corner of the internet Emily had never seen. Then it was 4 of them. Then it was 9, and Emily was answering messages at midnight from a phone on a floor. And one Tuesday in June, she was doing it while dinner burned. And Lily walked in and turned off the stove and said, Mom, this is a job. It's not a job. You did it for 4 hours yesterday. It's not 4 hours. I timed it, Lily said. Emily looked at her. You timed me. I time everything now, Lily said. It's a whole thing I do. It's probably a trauma response. Sophie's mom says, Lily. Mom, it's a job. Lily crossed her arms 15 going on 40. You're doing it for free at night on the floor badly while burning chicken. So either stop doing it or do it like a person. Emily said, I don't know how to do it like a person. Then ask Ruth, Lily said, because you ask Ruth about everything else. So on a Thursday in July, Emily sat across from Ruth Behar with bad Thai food between them again and said, I need to ask you something, and I need you to not laugh. No promises. How do you start a thing? Ruth put down her chopsticks. What kind of thing? I don't know. There are 11 women. Emily heard how it sounded. 11 women in 5 states who message me at midnight and ask me how to save a bank statement, and I don't know any of them. And I'm not qualified for a single thing about it, and I can't stop. Ruth said, How long? Since March. Emily, it's July. I know. Ruth leaned back and looked at her for a long moment. Okay, she said. First question and answer honestly, because everything else depends on it. What is it for? What do you mean? I mean, is it for them? Ruth said. Or is it for him? Emily opened her mouth, and then she closed it because she wasn't sure. Yeah, Ruth said. That's the right answer, actually. Anybody who answers that fast is lying. She wiped her mouth. So go home and figure it out, and when you know, come back and I'll tell you about a 501c3, and it will be the most boring conversation of your life. Emily figured it out 3 weeks later at a kitchen table in a walk-up at 2:15 in the morning because of a woman named Renata in Tampa who wrote her one line and then stopped answering for 9 days. The line was, I found it. What do I do now? And Emily wrote back everything, the whole architecture of it, The folders and the drives and the lawyer and Renata didn't answer. 9 days. Emily didn't sleep well, any of them. She checked the app at every red light. She checked it in the shower, which she was ashamed of. On day 6, she almost wrote, "Are you alive?" and stopped herself, because Ruth had once said, "You are not the police," and because she understood something about the silence. On day 9, Renata wrote, "I'm sorry. I couldn't." He cried, and I couldn't. Emily stared at the phone. And every instinct she had, every single one, wanted to type, "He's lying, he always cries, mine cried too." Renata, get up. She didn't. She typed, "Okay." Then, "The folder's still there. It doesn't expire. It'll be there in a year." Renata wrote back at 3:40 in the morning, "You're not going to yell at me." And Emily wrote, "No, 12 years, Renata." I was the one who couldn't for 12 years. I'm the last person on earth who gets to yell. There was a long pause. Then nobody said that to me. Everybody says leave. My sister says leave. My best friend won't talk to me anymore because I didn't leave. Emily put her hand over her mouth. "I'm not going to say leave," she typed. "I'm going to say no. That's all. Know what's true and know where it's written down. What you do with it is yours." Renata didn't answer that night. She answered 14 months later, and what she wrote was, "I used the folder. Every page. My lawyer said whoever taught you this should be teaching this." But that was 14 months later. That night at 2:15 in the morning, Emily Carter sat at a kitchen table and finally knew the answer to Ruth's question. It wasn't for Daniel. It had never been for Daniel. Daniel had been a bad marriage that ended, which happens to a third of the people on earth. And if it had only been that, Emily would have grieved it and buried it and been done. It was for the 12 years. Because for 12 years, Emily Carter had run a household and a career that wasn't hers, and she had known where every dollar was and every contract lived, and she had believed with total sincerity that this made her safe. And the day she found the photo, she had discovered that she wasn't safe at all. She was just useful. And the only reason she survived was an accident, the accident that she happened to be the kind of person who never lost a login. Every woman writing her at midnight was the same woman, not the same story, the same position. Standing in a house she ran holding a phone, realizing that everything she knew was in her head and nothing was in her name. Emily wrote it down on a napkin at 2:40 in the morning. "Know before you need to know." She looked at it for a while. Then she wrote underneath, "Strength first." Then decide. She took it to Ruth on a Tuesday. Ruth read the napkin. Ruth put the napkin down. "That's it," she said. "That's it. That's a mission statement, Emily. People pay consultants $40,000 for a worse one than that." Ruth pushed her glasses up. "Okay, now the boring part. Sit down. You're going to hate every second of this." She was right. Emily hated it. She hated the filing fee and the bylaws and the word fiduciary and the 11-page form and the woman at the bank who asked her 3 times if she wanted to add her husband. She hated the accountant. She hated the insurance conversation, which took 90 minutes and made her cry in a parking garage for reasons she couldn't identify. But she did it. She did it the way she'd done 400 pages in 11 days, one folder at a time at night, badly, with the radiator banging. In October, 13 months after a woman posted a photograph from her bed, Emily Carter filed the paperwork for a nonprofit and called it The Truth Project. Toby's birthday was that same week. She thought about that. She thought about it a lot. She'd had 4 possible dates, and she picked that one on purpose, and she never told a single person why not Ruth, not Lily, nobody. October 4th had been going to be the day her life ended. She made it the day something started instead. She didn't tell anyone. She just knew. Daniel came to the party. That was the schedule, and the schedule was iron. And Emily had learned by then that iron was the only kindness that worked with him. He came at 2. He brought a hockey stick. Emily saw it in his hand at the door, and something in her chest did something complicated and awful, and she said evenly, "Hi, Daniel. Hey." He'd lost weight. He was selling for a smaller shop out in Schaumburg. He had a studio apartment and a car with 140,000 miles on it, which Emily had noticed once and then made herself stop noticing. "Is that a stick?" she said. "Yeah." "He's 10. He's on the Tuesday League, at the park." Daniel wouldn't look at her. It's $400 a season. I paid it. I paid it in July. Emily said nothing. I know, Daniel said quietly. I know what it is. I'm not asking you to say anything about it. I just wanted him to have it. And Emily Carter, standing in the doorway of a 2-bedroom walk-up, said, Give it to him yourself. He looked up. Go in there and give it to him yourself, she said. And don't make a speech, and don't cry, and don't tell him what it means. He's 10. Let it just be a stick. Daniel swallowed hard. Okay, he said. He went in. He gave Toby a hockey stick. He did not make a speech. Toby screamed loud enough to be heard in Wisconsin and then hit a lamp with it in 4 seconds flat, and Lily said, Obviously. And everybody laughed, and Emily stood in her own kitchen and watched her ex-husband laugh in her house at her son's birthday and felt absolutely nothing except a distant clinical relief that the man had finally at 43 done one thing correctly without being asked. He left at 4. At the door he said, Can I say one thing? Is it about you? He stopped, and then to his everlasting credit, he actually thought about it. Yeah, he said. It is. Then no. He nodded. He almost smiled. Yeah, he said. Fair. And he left. Lily came up beside her at the window. You okay? I'm fine. You're doing the thing with your hands. Emily looked down. She was doing the thing with her hands. Mom, Lily said, you know what the weirdest part is? He's a better dad now. He's not a good dad, but he's better than he was when he lived here. She shook her head slowly. That's so messed up. Yeah. Like that's actually the most depressing thing I've ever figured out. Yeah, Emily said. It is. Do you hate him? Emily thought about it honestly. No, she said. That's the part nobody believes. I don't hate him. I just don't think about him. She looked at her daughter. That's what killed him, you know. Not the comment, not the audit. I stopped thinking about him and he can't stand it. That's why he brings up the stick. That's why he asks if he can say one thing. He's not trying to come back. He's trying to get back in my head because when I ran his life, he was somebody, and now he's a guy in Schaumburg. Lily said, That's brutal. It's not brutal. It's just true. Emily turned from the window. Cake. The Truth Project had no office for the first year. It had a laptop, a folding table, a website Lily built for $140, and a phone number that rang directly to Emily's cell until 11 p.m. when it went to a message that said in Emily's own voice, You've reached the Truth Project. Nobody here is going to tell you what to do. Leave your name. In February, a woman named Colleen from Rogers Park drove down to meet her at a coffee shop and put a folder on the table and said, I did what you said. Emily opened it. 14 months of statements. Highlighted. Cross-referenced. A tab system. Emily looked up. Colleen, she said, who taught you this? You did. Colleen's chin went. On the internet at 2 in the morning 9 times. At the eat. And Emily Carter, 41 years old, sitting in a coffee shop in Rogers Park, started to cry in front of a stranger, which she had promised herself she would never do. Oh, God, I'm sorry, Colleen said, panicking. I'm sorry, did I... No, Emily laughed, wiping her face with the heel of her hand. No, it's Colleen, do you understand what you did? Do you understand what this is? It's a folder. It's a floor. Emily said. It's a floor to stand on. I didn't have one. I made one in 11 days out of panic and a laptop, and it almost killed me, and you already have one, before you needed it. Do you know how rare that is? Colleen said quietly. I haven't decided anything yet. You don't have to. My mother says I'm being paranoid. Emily put her hand flat on the folder. Colleen, she said, listen to me. If you're wrong, and he's a good man, and this is nothing, then in 10 years you'll find this folder in a closet, and you'll feel silly for an afternoon, and that's the entire cost. She leaned in. And if you're right, this is the difference between the next 20 years of your life and somebody else's. Colleen looked at the table for a long moment. Then she said, I'm not wrong. I know, Emily said. I could tell from your handwriting. By the second year, there were 4 volunteers and a room above a hardware store on Lincoln. And Ruth Behar came in one afternoon a month and did an hour called What a Judge Actually Sees, and she made grown women take notes like it was 1987. They didn't do rescue. That was the rule, and Emily wrote it on the wall in Sharpie badly the first week. They didn't do rescue, and they didn't do revenge. A woman came in the 8th month wanting to know how to get into her husband's email. Emily said no. The woman got angry. Emily said no again. The woman said, "You did it. You did it to him. Everybody knows what you did." And Emily said, "I never opened anything I didn't have the right to open. Not one. That's the entire reason I won, and that's the entire reason you're standing in a room I pay rent on." The woman said, "That's a technicality." And Emily said, "It's the only thing standing between you and being the villain in your own divorce. It's not a technicality. It's the whole thing." The woman left angry. She came back 4 months later and apologized and became a volunteer, and is at the time of this telling on the board. The message request came on a Thursday in April in the 3rd year, and Emily almost deleted it without reading because by then there were 40 a week. It said, "I don't expect you to answer. It's Olivia." Emily sat down. She read it 11 times before she opened it fully. "I'm in Denver. I work at a dental office. I'm not doing content anymore. Obviously nobody would touch me, and I don't want it anyway. I'm 29. I have a boyfriend who doesn't know, and I'm not sure how to tell him because how do you say that sentence? I've written this like 6 times. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I know that's not a thing. I just wanted to tell you 2 things. 1, I got a lawyer, like you said. On the porch. I did that the next day. And they asked me exactly what you said they'd ask where the rent came from, and because I had the texts where he told me it was his building, I was fine. That's it. That's the only reason I was fine. You told me that when I was standing on your porch screaming at you, and you gave me a glass of water, and I have never understood it, and I've thought about it every week for 3 years. 2, my mom got divorced when I was 11, and my dad had a girlfriend, and my mom just kind of stopped. Like the whole rest of her life, she just stopped. And I think somewhere in my head, I decided I was never going to be her. And then I did the worst possible version of that. I'm not asking for anything. I just needed to say it to you, and not to the internet. Emily sat with that for 4 days. She talked to Ruth about it, who said, "Don't answer." She talked to Lily about it, who was 18 by then, and said, "Mom, don't you dare answer." She talked to Toby about it, who was 12, and knew nothing about it, and who said, apropos of nothing over pizza, "Mom, why do you always answer people?" And Emily said, "What?" And he said, "You always answer people, even the weird ones." On the 5th day, she wrote back. It was 3 lines. "Olivia, I read it. Tell your boyfriend the whole thing in one sitting. Don't do it in pieces. Pieces are how people lie without lying. You're 29. That's not a sentence, it's an age. Don't write me again." She never did. Emily told exactly one person she'd answered, and it was Colleen 3 years later, and Colleen said, "Why?" And Emily said, "Because somebody handed her a glass of water once, and it worked." The Tribune came back in the 4th year. Nadia Whitcomb, the same reporter, older, doing features now, and she called and said, "Mrs. Carter, I've been trying you for 6 years." "I know." "You never called back. Not once. Not when it was hot. Not when it was cold." A pause. "Why not?" "Because you were writing about a bedroom," Emily said. "I was writing about a fraud. Everybody else was writing about the bedroom." Nadia said, "Fair. Can I write about the room above the hardware store?" Emily said, "You can write about what happens in it. You can't write about me." Mrs. Carter. "That's the deal," Emily said. "Take it or don't. I'm not being difficult. There are 900 women who came through that room, and not one of them came because of my marriage. They came because of a folder. Write about the folder." Nadia was quiet. Then she said, "You know, that's the first time in 22 years someone's turned down a profile." "Then write that," Emily said. "That's more interesting than me." The piece ran in June, 1,200 words. Emily's name appeared twice, both times in the phrase founder. Emily Carter said, and the photograph was of a folding table with 14 folders on it and nobody's face. The phone rang for 11 days straight. They ran out of chairs. Daniel called her once that summer out of the schedule, which he never did. She almost didn't pick up. "Em, is it about the kids?" "No." "Then, it's about the article," he said. "Please, 90 seconds. Emily sat down on the arm of a couch she'd finally bought. 90 seconds, she said. I read it. His voice was strange. Twice. And then I sat in my car in a parking lot for an hour. Daniel, there's a line in it, he said. It says, "The Truth Project does not counsel divorce." And I thought it was a typo. So I read it again, and then it says, "You tell them the folder doesn't expire." He stopped. "Emily, you tell them to stay if they want to stay." "I tell them to know," Emily said. "What they do with it is theirs." "You'd have stayed." Emily said nothing. "If I'd told you in April," Daniel said, and his voice cracked, "if I'd sat down and told you you would have stayed and worked on it, wouldn't you?" "Yes," Emily said. He made a sound. "That's what I did," he said. "That's what I actually did. Not the girl. Not even the money. I took away the conversation. I made a decision for both of us, and then I acted it out for 161 days. Emily looked at the ceiling. "Why are you telling me this now?" she said. 6 years. "Because I finally understand it," Daniel said. "It took 6 years. My therapist says, Daniel." "Right." He laughed thin. "Sorry. Right." There was a silence. Then he said, "Em, is there anything I could ever—" "No." Emily said, "Okay." "Not because I hate you," she said. "Because it's not there. It's not a door I'm holding shut, Daniel. There's no door. There's a wall, and there's been a wall since about 11 o'clock on a Sunday morning, and I didn't build it, and neither did you. It just went up." She paused. "That's the part I'd tell you if we were the kind of people who told each other things. You didn't lose me in the kitchen. You lost me while I was still standing there holding a bag of pastries and my hands weren't even shaking." Daniel didn't speak for a long time. Then he said, "Thank you for the schedule." "That's the kids' schedule, not mine." "I know," he said. "I know. But you never used it. Not one time. In 6 years. You could have." And that of everything was the closest Daniel Carter ever came to an apology that was actually about her. "Good night, Daniel," Emily said. She hung up, and she sat on the arm of her couch for a minute, and then got up and made dinner because Toby had practice at 7. Lily was 21 the summer she said it. They were on the phone and she was in a dorm kitchen in Ann Arbor, and she said casually the way she said everything, "Oh, so I told my roommate the story. Lily." Not to be dramatic, she was crying about her boyfriend. Lily. And she said the same thing everybody says. She said, "Wow, your mom destroyed him with one comment." Lily paused. And I said, "No. I said that's not what happened. I said, my mom didn't destroy anybody. My mom wrote 3 facts, and everybody else jumped off the building on their own." Emily's throat closed. And she said, "Well, that's less cool," Lily said. Emily laughed. And I said, "Yeah," Lily said. "It's way less cool. It's just true." Mom, wait, I'm not done. That's not the thing I called about." Lily took a breath. "The thing I called about is I'm switching to accounting." Emily sat down. "You hate math. I hate math class." Lily. "Mom, I want to know where the money is." Lily's voice was steady, and it was the steadiest thing Emily had ever heard come out of her child. "For the rest of my life, in every situation, I want to be the person in the room who knows where the money is." A beat. "I'm not doing it because of him. Everyone's going to think I'm doing it because of him." "You're doing it because of me," Emily said. "Yeah," Lily said. And Emily Carter put her hand over her eyes in a kitchen in Chicago. "Was that bad?" Lily said. "That sounded bad." "No," Emily said. "No, baby. That's the best thing anyone's ever said to me." They gave her an award in the 7th year. It was a small one, a women's foundation, a hotel ballroom, 400 people and chicken. She almost said no. Ruth made her go, and Ruth sat at the table in a suit and said, "If you cry, I'm leaving," which was the most affectionate thing Ruth Behar had ever said to anybody. They wanted her to talk about the comment. Of course they did. The woman who introduced her said the word viral twice. Emily stood up. 400 people. Lily in the 3rd row. And she said this, Everyone wants to talk about 11 words I typed on a Thursday night, and I understand why, because it's a good story and it's short and it has a villain in it. So I want to tell you the true version, and it's going to be boring, and I need you to let it be boring." The room went quiet. "The 11 words didn't do anything," Emily said. "They were true and they were free, and they took me 9 seconds. If that comment was all I had, I would have lost my house, my kids' school, and probably my kids, and I would be a woman you never heard of who got angry on the internet one time and paid for it for 20 years. She looked at the room. "What actually saved my life was that I knew where the money was." Somebody in the back laughed, uncertain. "No, I'm serious. That's it. That's the whole speech." Emily gripped the podium. "I spent 11 days making a folder, 400 pages. I didn't do it because I'm brave. I'm not brave. I did it because I was the kind of person who does the taxes, and it was the only thing I knew how to do while my life was on fire." She stopped. "And here's what I need every person in this room to hear, because there are women in here right now who know exactly what I'm talking about and are hoping I don't look at them. You are not safe because you're needed. I was needed for 12 years. I was the most needed woman in Cook County. I proofread his contracts, and I made his flashcards, and I knew every password in that man's life, and I thought that was the same thing as being safe. It's not. Being needed isn't safety. It's a job. And the day I found out my entire security consisted of one accident, the accident that I happened to be a person who never lost a login. That's it. That's what it came down to. Not love, not 12 years, not 2 children. A login." Nobody in that room made a sound. "So the Truth Project doesn't tell women to leave," Emily said. "We get criticized for that. I've been called a coward for it in 3 separate publications. And my answer is always the same. I'm not in the leaving business. I'm in the knowing business. Because a woman who knows can stay, and she can go. And either way, it's a choice. And choice is the entire thing. That's all any of it ever was." She looked down at the podium. "The last thing," she said, "and then I'll sit down. People say the most important thing I did was expose him. It's in every version of the story, and it's wrong, and I've stopped correcting it because it's exhausting. The most important thing I did was not the comment. It was not the folder. It was not the lawyer. The most important thing I did was stop abandoning myself." She let it sit. "I did that at a kitchen table at 3 in the morning while my husband slept upstairs. Nobody saw it. There's no screenshot of it. 11,000 people liked a sentence I wrote in 9 seconds, and not one human being on earth witnessed the only thing that actually mattered." Emily stepped back from the microphone. "That's the story," she said. "Thank you for the chicken." She sat down. Ruth Behar, who did not cry, and then said, "God damn it, Emily," and blew her nose. 10 years after a woman posted a photograph from another woman's bed. Toby Carter turned 19 and did the thing Emily had known was coming since a car ride on Belden Avenue. He searched his father's name. He came into the kitchen with his laptop and set it on the counter and said, "Mom." Emily's whole body went cold. "Yeah, I looked him up." She made herself breathe. "Okay. There's a Tribune thing from 2019, business section. It's like 900 words. Toby's face was very still, the way it had been on that sidewalk. "It says, occupancy irregularities." "Yes, that's it. That's all that's there. That's all that's there." Toby looked at the screen for a long moment. Then he said, "Mom, you could have made it worse." Emily didn't move. "There were reporters," Toby said. "Lily told me. There were reporters calling for like a year and you never picked up. Not once." "That's right. Why?" And Emily Carter looked at her son, 19 6'1" hockey shoulders, her mouth his father's hands, and gave him the same answer she'd given on a porch at 6:31 in the morning when he was 9 years old and asleep upstairs. "Because you were going to do exactly this," she said. "Someday. I knew you would. Every kid does." She shrugged. "And whatever was there, you were going to read it. So I decided what was going to be there." Toby's eyes went red. "You did that when I was 9, he said. "Yes. You were Mom. You were in the middle of the worst thing that ever happened to you, and you were thinking about what I'd read when I was 19. "Yes." Toby closed the laptop. And then at 19, in a kitchen, he said the thing that Emily would carry in her chest until the day she died. "That's the whole difference between you," he said. He counted 161 days so he could get out clean, and you counted 10 years so I'd have something I could live with. Emily couldn't speak. "I'm not going to call him," Toby said. "Toby." "No, I am. Eventually. He's my dad. I'll call him." He wiped his face with his sleeve, 19 years old, and doing exactly what he'd done at 9, wiping it away before anyone could see. "I'm just saying, I know which one of you raised me." The Truth Project has an office now. It has 11 employees, which Emily finds funny in a way she has never explained to a single person. It runs financial literacy programs in 4 cities and a legal prep curriculum that Ruth Behar wrote at 71 and revises every spring cursing. It has never, not once in 14 years, told a woman what to do. Emily Carter is 52. She lives near the park. She has a couch. Her hands are steady. Sometimes at the end of a session, a woman will hang back until the room empties and come up and say the thing they always say, which is, "Can I ask you something? Do you ever wish you hadn't seen it?" And Emily always says the same thing. "No, because I didn't lose my marriage that Sunday. My marriage was already over. It had been over since April, and there was a date on the calendar, and I wasn't invited. All I found out that Sunday was the truth. And once the truth is finally written down, nobody can force it back into silence." Then she picks up her bag and goes home to make dinner. Because the woman everyone thought was powerless was never powerless at all. She was just the only one in the room who kept the receipts.